College SportsCast. I'm Brad, and we are presented by the Fanboys. And it's not loading.
And now the waiting begins.
This is Brad with College SportsCast, and we have a special guest with us on tonight. We have Chris Marler from Saturday Down South with us tonight. Hey, Chris, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are y'all?
We're doing good. We're
fantastic.
excited to have you on.
Great, man. I love that intro. That intro is sick. The whole song and everything.
Well, we've had a couple on that say they like the intro, so I always have a little trouble getting it going because it's just a simple little finger click, and it's always have a little trouble with it. But it's kind of running like comedy.
It's a running
with
joke.
with our show because I always have a little trouble with it. But now we're getting used to it. Now it's just kind of a running joke, basically.
Yeah. Well, anybody that's ever listened to any of our podcasts knows that I'm definitely not the technology person. And there's always when there's ever a screw up, it's always usually it's something that I've done. So I totally get it. You're good.
Right. Well, so with us, Chris, we have John Roberts.
What's up?
We have Jason Harrison with us. Jason is an ex-Ole Miss basketball player.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice. I had a background rocking y'all as well tonight. So there you go.
So we're excited to have Chris on with us, Saturday Down South, and I think you do a podcast called College Football Uncensored as well, right?
I do. If you we started doing that about 2 years ago. I've been with SCS for about 5 years. Ran all their social media. Now I'm in charge of more of like the video content. I think they just changed my title today to video and on-air talent, which is it sounds a lot cooler than engagement editor. I'll say that. So, but yeah, so I do all that stuff. I run the podcast. We have me and my co-host Tyler Huck. We've been doing that, like I said, for about 2 years. So if you love college football and you're okay with the F word, then you should definitely check it out.
Fun.
I like that. And you're okay with the F word.
Yeah. It is used very frequently on there. I will say that, but it's just we're passionate. We love it, and I just don't like being filtered or censored as much. So it's a lot of fun.
Right, and you're heavy lean SECs,
right?
With Saturday Down South. Y'all have a lot of other stuff, do you, outside of SEC?
So we actually just launched 4 different sites this past year. We have Saturday Out West. The names are going to be really good. You're going to love these. Saturday Out West. For the Pac-12.
That's the ACC, right?
Yeah, it was that Saturday Road. That's a pretty good name for the logo as well. And then the other one we've had for a while now is actually called Tradition, which we've had for probably 4 or 5, 6 years. It's a Big Ten site. Now I don't read any of those or any of the content that comes from just because I hate the Big Ten a ton. But like I grew. I was not. Like before I started this job, I never considered myself an SEC homer because like I wouldn't pull for like other teams than my own favorite team. But now being in like the media part of it, I'm definitely biased, I think, towards the SEC just because they've warranted that in almost all sports. But I also, in terms of like, I have a team that I pull for, and I'm very open about that. But I try to go out of my way to be as like objective as possible. Now, like, I'll still troll teams for sure because that's a lot lot of fun.
Yes, Ohio State
right.
is fun to troll.
Very, very much so. But
yeah, so Ohio State. So I was telling somebody that we were going to have you on the show, and they were like, "Man, he had an awful take in the preseason about Ohio State."
I said they were going to win the national title over Georgia.
I don't know. I just thought I would throw that out there to you, and
Okay.
I thought maybe you were trolling or something. I don't know.
Right, so I said before the season, this is what cracks me up about college football fans, because like for the most part, my job, I'm just supposed to be entertaining. And I've loved college football my whole life, and it's my favorite thing in the world, and it always has been. And it's why most of my relationships haven't worked out, because that is not my favorite thing. This is every 9 months or so when we get 3 to 4 months of bliss on Saturdays. But like I said before the season, because like if there's anything before the season, like predicting the Heisman is pretty stupid because there's so many factors that come into it, right? And I'm wrong a lot. I'm sure, as we all are, if you are in the take business. I'll tell you right now that this year I have never been more accurate in like the weirdest ways than I have my whole career. We did a preseason episode and we went 18 for 21 in our preseason picks of like, and including like prop bets, like in like how many yards, touchdowns, all that kind of stuff. And I had Ohio State winning the national title over Georgia, which I don't know if you guys watched that Peach Bowl, but it was a pretty clear cut that those two are the best teams in the country. So I don't know.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think the Peach Bowl was.
I'm not funny.
Was basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ohio State played great, and Ohio State played great in that game and had a great chance. I mean, really probably should have won the game.
Yeah, Peach Bowl. I feel like saying it's like a Bloody Mary type thing. You walk into a bathroom and you like say Bloody Mary 3 times, and if you say that 3 times, I think like Georgia fans on Twitter will come out of the woodwork and try to just like ruin your next 2 to 3 days.
Right.
So.
You'll just start hearing barking. Bark.
So all right. So your team, Alabama, this past week has hired two new coordinators. What's your take on 2 new defensive and offensive coordinators that they have?
Right.
What's your feeling?
So I'll get into the offensive stuff. I did like more of a deep dive into and like why I think it's a good fit, because I just thought it was stupid that both those guys were getting so much slander from fans, but I also get that's what fans do, right? And I think that Bama's in a unique place where not all schools are like this, but then like that Saban is not going to be influenced by like the outside perception of what he has, right? Like he's not going to like fire anybody based off of him feeling pressured from and the fans complaining about it. Like that's never going to happen. So I think it was an odd situation to watch it unfold because Golding leaves, and I thought he would be the one that stayed if anyone stayed. I also know that he went to Ole Miss, and it's like that's when that was like brought up. It wasn't exactly like, oh no. It was like, hey, that's a good opportunity. I think you should go pursue that opportunity. That's fine. The thing with O'Brien, I think he had calls that infuriated me at times. I think against Tennessee, he had 4 plays inside the 2-yard line that were passing plays. And there's a lot of numbers that you look at and are like, what is he doing? Like, why are we not running the football? Like all these different things. He had a top 6 offense 2 years in a row. He had a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. But I also think when you didn't have the same kind of elite playmakers or like at the receiver position, he was pretty limited with what he had to work with, which is saying a lot because he had Bryce Young, who I think is the best quarterback in Bama history. Anyway, go to the coordinator part of it. I think the Tommy Rees thing is good for so many reasons because it shocked everyone. So immediately everyone's going to be like, why? Because it's not like a name anybody had heard. It's also not a person when you immediately go look at the stats, I mean just the surface level dumb stats that all me included fans will look at it. Well, they only averaged this amount of passing yards per game, or they only did this, and they didn't. Like you start looking at what Tommy Rees offenses do and like what his whole MO is. It's running the football. They ran the football 60% of their play calls in 2 of his 3 seasons. They're a run first team. He's also had a lot of success with quarterback development, and that's something Bama's going to need next year because they don't have a generational quarterback anywhere on that roster like you have for the last 5 different go-rounds at the university. So having the running game be like a staple of it, I think is huge. And you also look at what Tommy Rees has done with like any sort of like obstacles or adversity, and it's really impressive because he's the only offensive staff member returning going into this season with a brand new head coach in year 1. He had his 3rd quarterback in 3 different years that he had to work with, and it ended up being a backup quarterback he had to play with the whole season, and they ended up winning 8 of their last 10 games. So I think on offense, you're going to see Bama return to the run game. On defense, I just from what I know from like, I'm not an ESPN. I don't work the Athletic. I don't have a bunch of sources in a lot of places, but in Tuscaloosa, I have a pretty good source, and I will tell you right now what I think is going to happen is what I think I've been saying all along. I don't think they're going to hire Kevin Steele so Kevin Steele can run this defense. I didn't think they were going to hire Todd Grantham and have him run the defense. They were going to hire somebody to run that defense while Jeremy Pruitt comes on staff as an analyst, and then he runs the show from behind the scenes until he's legally allowed to be, at the forefront of the NCAA. And people can say that's it's a conspiracy theory. It's a far-fetched. I will tell you right now that is exactly what is going to happen if that man is anywhere on staff, and I think he will be, because Kevin Steele is not going to run that defense.
From the college football capital of the South, Birmingham, I can go ahead and confirm or really say that there are heavy lean that is what you're saying is accurate.
Right. And I thought it was going to be Grantham. I was dreading that because I did not want to have to hear like Georgia fans talk trash about that hire, because like if Grantham was hired, that's just bad look on so many levels, but it also would have made sense in terms of like it working out for both parties, because that man's
I was actually joking that they should hire Grantham as the DC and Dan Mullen as the OC.
I would love that. Like, and
honestly,
ex-Mississippi State or ex-Florida, depending on your time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would have been a good hire for both of them, actually. Pretty, yeah.
Well, I would have laughed at the Grantham one, but
Grantham would have been bad.
That would have been bad. We would really know who was running the defense at that point. Well, you could tell easily if it's all out blitz every play, then we know it's Grantham. If it's not all out blitz every play, then you know that Saban's actually running it, and Grantham is just in name only.
Right.
Now, what if Dan Mullen hire actually happened? What do you think that would do for the landscape of college football if he actually did hire Dan Mullen as his OC?
God, that would have been fun, man. That would have been so much fun. And like watching what Dan Mullen, I think, would have done with somebody like Jalen Milroe, that would have been must-see TV in my opinion. Like Jalen Milroe is the most exciting player, like on Alabama's roster, hands down. Like it's not close. He's the fastest player on the roster. He's built like a truck. Like he's not a passer, just bottom line. But he is a quarterback that I would love to see start for 12 games. I think there might be a ceiling on 9 to 10 wins on that. But with Dan Mullen, that would have been like Dan Mullen is a great offensive coach. And I think what happens with a lot of people now is that like there becomes this new built-in perception, and the perception somehow comes a reality that like, oh, they're not any good because of like Twitter said they weren't good, or like Dan Mullen got so much crap because Kirby beat the crap out of him every single year. Like, I mean, he destroyed them, and he had one good year, and their best year they ended up going 8-4 because of all these different things that happened with the LSU game and the shoe and all that. But Dan Mullen went to 3 New Year's Six bowls in his first 3 years as a head coach at Florida, and like Mississippi State has been and then
it just falls apart, and they fire him in 1 year.
Yeah, well, I think he was not going to ever be a recruiter, but in that position at OC at Bama, he wouldn't really have to be because Bill O'Brien wasn't really necessarily a key recruiter. So I think that was the first person I wanted, to be honest, was Dan Mullen. I think Dan Mullen would have been a lot of fun, and he's also not a guy that like would have caused any kind of issues. I think with Saban, the only issue I can see with him is like I think Mullen like when he's done with work, he's like us, like he'll go home and he he's done with work. Like he's hanging out with the wife, he's watching TV, he's doing what the hell ever. Like, and everyone else is like, why are you not recruiting? Why are you not doing this? And he's like, I don't know, because it's 9 p.m. Like I don't like. So that probably not.
Which again, if they, for Alabama staff and the fact that they're so big and have a bunch of people doing it, they could have easily hired around that. So as you were saying, you're hiring Dan Mullen to be Dan Mullen, the offensive coordinator, not Dan Mullen, the recruiter, not Dan Mullen, the whatever. So when you hire Dan Mullen, you're going to have to hire 2 people or 3 people or whatever, because you're going to hire Dan Mullen, the offensive coordinator, and then you're going to hire the recruiter and the other person that would, somebody else that would work, other things, but that would be it.
I would disagree with that, just because the fact that you can get away with that, the offensive play caller and like the offensive coordinator, because Bill O'Brien, listen, I don't know the ins and outs of how they hit the recruiting trail, but I seriously doubt that Bill O'Brien was going into these homes of like 17 and 18-year-old kids and just coming off with like dripping swag and getting along well and having anything in common with these fucking people. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I think that you can get away with the OC position. You know what I mean?
Right. That's what I'm saying.
That's kind of funny.
You could do that, but
that's kind of funny, Chris. Bill O'Brien with dripping swag.
If he cha-cha slide video come out, it would be the end of the world, I think.
I mean, unlike Saban dancing in recruits' home, I would love to see Bill O'Brien just going up there and just
Chase, can't you see Bill O'Brien dripping some swag?
I cannot see that. Just to be honest with you, I cannot see that. That's why he went back to the NFL. I gotta get away. I gotta get with these grown men.
Every picture of Bill O'Brien, always looks like he's trying to check out the price on something like a menu that's too far for him to see. It's just like that's it. That's
exactly.
That's what you get, huh?
Yeah.
Exactly.
That or it's just a confused person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
Yeah, a little confused about something. Yeah. So, do you keep up with college basketball much? SEC stuff, at least.
I do. I've had a good time with it this year. When it hits the off season, it's like, what's up, John Hammonds? It hits the off season. It's like I try to always get it. It takes me a couple of weeks, man, because it's like Bama usually ends up going into like January usually, and an SEC team does almost every year, no matter what. And so like it's like college football. Covering college football is so much fun, but it's a grind. And the end of the season is when it's at its peak, because it's like you have bowl games and nothing stops. It just keeps going. And luckily, Georgia beat TCU before they even took the field. So it's like you got a little bit of a break. But college basketball always takes me a minute. It just takes me a minute to do.
Yes.
Well, the reason why I was I was going to ask you about this. Mm-hmm. So the SEC over the last seems to kind of be taking a slide, not as strong as what I think most people thought they would be.
Right.
Lost a couple of games. Kentucky strong. Arkansas dealt with some stuff, not as strong. I don't think Auburn has had a season that a lot of people thought Auburn would have. So,
Auburn
I just wondered what you thought about the SEC.
Very accurate.
I mean, there's a lot of teams that's having some issues.
Yeah.
Here's the thing too about Auburn. Okay, the phrase "shoot more, score more" generally applies to most teams. It does not with Auburn. You shoot more, you don't necessarily score more.
It's like a Gus Malzahn offense. Just you got to be up tempo for what? So you can get off the field faster?
Yeah, so we can get inside the 20 and then kick a field goal? It's faster to the field goal. All right, let's go.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Barnes is having major offensive problems right now. That's what's going on with them. Kentucky is having some major, at least defensive problems. And that's what's going on with them. Arkansas has had some injury bug going on with them. So, I mean, when you look at everything, why, to me, the SEC's down a little bit. So,
yeah.
Well, Arkansas.
I just kind of wondered leading into March Madness.
I just want to put that in the atmosphere.
Everybody looks good against Kentucky, and I'm a Kentuckian, so
Arkansas looked real good against Kentucky the other day, but
Kentucky plays no defense.
Well, I think they have a problem with rebounding right now. I think when the big fella doesn't rebound, I think that Kentucky cannot get out and run. But
Kentucky
that Tennessee
cannot guard the ball. If
Chris,
you're a basketball guy, you know this, okay, Jason? They cannot guard the ball.
But when you said something about Rick Barnes, man, Tennessee, the biggest play of the game that cost them game is when they didn't take the 2 points, when they actually had a chance to go up by 4 and put Vanderbilt in a tough situation. I actually turned from the game because when I knew they had to do all those fouling, Tennessee's going to win this game. And then catching it on ESPN Sports Center later was like, wow, 3, 2, 1, corner 3.
Can't leave them open in corner 3.
Yep, that's how they got beat last night. But I mean, again, Jason, that's another one of them games. The same thing I've been saying. Tennessee just doesn't have the offense that they need for this team, and they let teams hang around, and they just don't score enough points in some of these games to win against inferior teams to to Tennessee's team.
So my thoughts.
Yes.
There's one specific team. And I hate to even be this person because of the shirt I'm wearing. There's one team that you didn't bring up out of all those teams about the SEC being down, and it's the team playing better than anybody maybe in the country right now, which is Bama. I think there's concerns there at times.
Right.
They will smoke people if they're shooting. There's nobody in the country I think they can beat them because they can be lights out if at times. And we saw it against LSU. We saw it this past game against Florida. You put up a 50 spot in the first half. You put up a 50 spot in either half in basketball, in college basketball. That's a lot. We've seen them do it a couple of times now. They did it at Arkansas in the second half. They did it, But I also think this. The Tennessee thing, what's scary about Tennessee is this. Their defense is so good. Like it's so good. But you're right. It does sometimes if they're on offense and they're not able to score, you can only, defense can only not bend and not break, I guess, for so long, I think. And they didn't give up only, they gave up 43 to Auburn, right? That's an ugly win. It's a rock fight. It's, I think Jimmy Dykes always loves to say. But, it's also a game that they're comfortable probably with winning because they know they can score 46. I don't think they know they can score 70 or 60 necessarily if they have to at the drop of a hat. And, if they're not shooting the ball well and the games are close, what scares me about Tennessee is going into the postseason, the whole story for Rick Barnes' entire career, and we've seen it happen over and over and over again, even at Tennessee, is you get to the postseason and you're supposed to be a 1 seed or a 2 seed or whatever, and you're out by the 16. Now,
and they get knocked out.
Yep. Right, and that's what I think.
And that's but here's the deal. That's kind of what I'm saying about them is that. So you're saying if where they have to score 75, can Tennessee do that?
Mm-mm. But I think that when we see them play Bama next week at home, I think that'll be very interesting. We'll know a lot more then in terms of what both teams have because at Bama, we've seen Bama go cold at times and how that can look. And it's frustrating. They put up so many threes. I think they put up the 4th most in all college basketball. And so they're not hitting them, or if Brandon Miller somehow is not, if he's silenced a little bit and it's put on the shoulders of someone else necessarily, I think that they have enough depth to where they can be fine with that. And they've overcome that a couple times. But I think going to Tennessee, it'll be interesting to see if Tennessee can keep up pace scoring or if Bama is mentally tough enough because they're a really young team to play against a team like Tennessee that's so well coached and so disciplined in a lot of ways. Unlike everything that happens with that football team.
Chris, let me ask you a question. And we've had this discussion on this podcast plenty of times before. Well, it's a 2-part question. Mm-hmm. Going on the road is tough in the SEC, but going on the road anywhere is tough. Do you think Alabama just plays better at home in some cases, or are they kind of like you said, they show their youth on the road?
That's interesting because I think the game they played against Mississippi State where they were so off, they were at home, and then you look at what they did against Missouri. Now you're talking about they're Mizzou's without their best player, one of the best players in the country that does not get nearly enough love. I think that Bama, like if Bama comes out and they hit 3 of their first 5 threes and they just start feeling it. I think that's like what sets the tone. I don't think it really necessarily matters because they beat Houston on the road, even though they were down by 15. I think this week is very interesting in a lot of ways, and I think Bama could go 0-2 this week. I really do because of the 2 environments they're going to play in. Auburn is going to be insane, and they still do have a good team. And then Tennessee, of course, Bama went on the road last year, beat Tennessee, but I think that game, those are the 2 best teams in the conference. When they're at home, everybody plays better at home. But bro, you played in that airplane hangar. I bet when they get on the road and that bus leaves the station from Tuscaloosa, they're like, "Thank God we get to go to an actual arena because this place sucks." Like Coleman Coliseum is the worst. But no,
unless you're John. Who was that? The 3-point shooter from a couple of years ago. John Petty, and then he likes playing in that that hangar because that's the only place he could shoot.
He did.
I think that Bama could lose both these games this week against Auburn and Tennessee. And I'll say this: I think it could also that could really affect their psyche going forward if they that they're obviously beatable. But it also could not matter at all because it's like that's what happens in throughout a season. It's hard to go win every game, obviously, because hardly anyone's ever done it. It's also very difficult to get through the conference play unscathed with so many of those road games.
Now, how would Auburn's outlook look if they beat Bama?
I just need y'all to win something. Zach, y'all did that whole everything school last year, and now we find out. I'm saying this in jest because this better than anyone. I've never been an Auburn fan, but I started doing all these Auburn Twitter spaces last year and got along with so many of these new Auburn friends and went down there for the first time to the A&M game, had a blast. It was on the field for the whole game. It's so much fun. And then something happened in the offseason, and I think everybody forgot that because the moment that they got into another season that wasn't football, I kind of thought Auburn fans thought, oh, this is like our time to shine. And then it hasn't gone well. If their outlook for the season, I think is basically the same. I think that this team is not the 2019 team that went to the Final Four. That is a generational team that had so many unique, special players that made this team. I think people see Wendell Green. I think they see Katie Johnson, and they thought oh man, this is like Bryce Brown. This is so and so because these guys are they do all these unique things that aren't specifically basketball elite things, right? I think that it'll give you a lot of confidence, and they should have that. But I also just don't see the ceiling for this team is just not very high. From what we've seen consistently. You know what it reminds me of is because I want to be optimistic about Auburn. I've tried to be the entire season about where they'll get it going at some point. Bruce Pearl's always done well with that. But no offense to the Kentucky thing, but every year I have to hear about Kentucky struggle through the whole season, and it's but when they get to March, you never know. It's no, I know they got beat by McLovin with a mustache last year. It was crazy.
Yeah, I would say this about both programs, Auburn and Kentucky. It is not about your coach.
Right.
It is not about X and O's. I'm sorry. It's about Jimmys and Joes. Guys who are on your team. You look at the Auburn team last year, they lost 2 first-round draft picks.
Right.
Kentucky, they lost a pure point guard. Now, we haven't seen them play in the NBA just yet.
Right.
But when you have talent supersedes anything you draw. It is so easy to say, hey, throw a guy the ball and say, go get me a bucket. When you don't have bucket getters, because
Auburn does not have a killer at all.
Yeah. Anybody who can score a bucket, man, listen, they're gonna lock and load on the other end, all 5 and play defense. If you have somebody who can get you 20, the game is easy. Any coach can draw up anything and say, hey, I'm this good offensive scheme. No. You have a player
right.
who can actually score the ball.
I will say this too, and I'm not trying to say this as a homer because like my knowledge about football is way more than basketball, and so like I've always watched Bama basketball. It's been like watching Bama football before Saban for every single year. It's like, all right, well, they're always in it, and then like 5 minutes left, and then they just fall apart, or like like they would struggle so much just to get the 20 wins every single year. And you brought up like if they can go get you a bucket, like if you got one guy. I mean, I'm talking about like a time with like 3 years ago when Charles Bediako was the biggest and best recruit on that team. They go, oh, we got a 4-star. Like, hell yeah, that's awesome. And like the depth that Bama has and like the amount of guys that can get you a bucket is very good this year.
I mean, and that's the reason why I didn't mention Bama when I was mentioning those other teams. Bama has not been struggling. And the only game that Bama has bad in is the Oklahoma game, and that's it, period. The entire season so far. All right, Jace got to run.
Fair.
So I just wanted to let y'all know. So Jason's going to run off, or he's got to get in. So it's just going to be us three for the remainder of the show. But that's the reason why I didn't bring him a while ago. I think head and shoulders above the rest in the SEC. And you were talking about doesn't Tennessee come to Bama next week?
I think it's at Tennessee. I could be wrong. I think it's at Tennessee because I'm pretty sure when I saw that originally, I was like, that's a tough week, man. It's like at Auburn, at Tennessee.
Yeah, I think it's at Tennessee.
Yeah. So, and I don't know.
Oh, is it?
The SEC scheduling.
Well, so you might be right. You might be right. The at Tennessee game for Bama. So they play at Auburn on Saturday. Mm-hmm. Bama does. And what are you predicting in that game?
Bama is so good and they're so talented, and I love how they got checked when they got their ass kicked at Oklahoma, and that was a nightmare.
And then responded
immediately, and I think that was
by
great.
Drawing chalk lines.
Yeah. So I think that like I think this team is different. I think they really are different, and I think that they are a team. Like going to the Final Four is a crazy bar to set. I think for that program still. Even though I know it's what Nate Oates is trying to do. And this team has the talent to do it. I just know that from every time I've ever watched Alabama go to this arena, like I've been there in person. It's like the last college basketball game I went to. The first I went to with SDS, they sent me down to Auburn Arena to go watch Bama Auburn in basketball. And I had to watch them hand over that stupid sportsmanship trophy they play for in football that is ridiculous. But it was a 20-point blowout win from Auburn, and I feel like that's what we see every single time Auburn goes there, or Bama goes there.
Well, Auburn is a tough place to play. That's a tough environment. So it is a tough place to play.
I think this is not coming from a standpoint of like, let me break this game down for you, and this is what they're going to do on offense, defense. Just from what I've always seen, and the kind of how tough it is to play there, I don't want to say Auburn's going to win, but I kind of do, just because that's just what I've seen over and over and over again. And for me, no matter how talented this team is, until they're able to go ahead and beat, like jump that hurdle, it's like LSU 2019 type stuff, like where it's like all of a sudden this one's different, even though we've heard kind of the same things every year.
Right.
Go beat them. And like a win at Auburn tells me so
show
much
me. You're saying show me is what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
So
I just kind of wanted your thoughts on it. So Missouri plays at Tennessee on Saturday. Missouri is one of those teams that's kind of had a surprise. I mean, I think they've been a lot better than what most people thought they would be. They've won a few really big games at home, beating Arkansas, beating Kentucky at home. But now this one is in Knoxville on Saturday, and Tennessee's off of a loss to Vandy. So, what do you think might happen in this game, SEC-wise?
I think it's a huge, huge game for Tennessee. Missouri is so, like, I love Mizzou. My best friend is from St. Louis, and I've gone to Mizzou games for so long. Like, they get disrespected more than anyone in this conference. And I've never I get it because of the geographic location, but like that basketball program is going to be very strong over the next couple of years. It's a historically great basketball program. And like with this new coach, they've had such bad leadership over the past couple of years. And like even Quanzo Martin, a guy that's like very disciplined and like he's like, like a guy that your mom would want you to go play for. But you also know it's a guy that's not going to be paying for any players or that kind of stuff that was like so rampant in college basketball. The guy they have there now and the talent they have on that team, they can go into Knoxville and win that game. I don't necessarily think they will, but they will be comfortable with a low scoring game just like Tennessee will. And I think that if like you let Kobe get hot at all and he's able to put up 20, let alone 30, like we saw him do earlier in the season, Tennessee loses back-to-back games. I think you start to see a potential meltdown from that team from a confidence standpoint, because that's what usually happens then around this time of year or next month.
Right.
So you're saying that Tennessee's football, basketball, and baseball program cannot last an entire season.
That baseball team is the best baseball team I have ever seen, ever. And I mean, we
get knocked out in the first round.
Right.
No. They didn't even make it to the World Series, and they lost at home to. And don't forget,
like I said early, that's what I meant. First round, meaning like in the regionals, but I can't remember if they were regionals or super regionals. It doesn't matter. They didn't make it to Omaha.
No,
they didn't.
Like the basketball thing, Rick Barnes is like such a great dude, and I think everybody kind of saw this as like, because if you're a fan of college sports in general, everyone knows Tennessee is a blue blood football team, and they remember the '90s with Peyton and all that kind of stuff and Fulmer. Then you started getting this narrative because they've been down for so long, comically down, that Tennessee, football's better when Tennessee's back. College football's so much better when Tennessee's back, and look at what they've redone on Rocky Top, and the moment they got good. After they beat Bama by 3 points in overtime for the first time in 16 years, the moment they got good, you saw why it was good that Tennessee was not relevant for so long, because their fans were awful. And that baseball team was basically like if their Twitter came to life, because they were the worst.
Their coach.
Listen, I'm a Kentucky fan, and I've been going to Tennessee Kentucky games live since I was about 7 or 8 years old.
Yeah.
In the mid '80s, and I will firmly agree with you that Tennessee fans are one of the worst.
And we all have bad
French's
fans.
Mustard, golf balls. You name it.
Like
baseball
John
bats.
In the comments, he's made the comments like, ask Marler about his prediction about and what the end like Kentucky fans did. And I'll tell you about that in a second. But I mean, like I get it. And my job was in social media for so long, so I've interacted with everyone, and everyone has bad fans. It's not just Tennessee. Like Bama has probably maybe the worst fans, like in real life. But like that shit last year when their baseball team, and again, the most talented team I have ever seen. And like, I'm not like some like, boomer or anything. It's to be like, I don't understand all this celebration after home runs or like doing this, like at second base, any of that. I don't care about any of that. But when your best player, who's like your highest draftable player, hits a double in like the bottom of the ninth in a game you're losing in the postseason, and then rounds first base, giving the middle finger to the center fielder, that is like there is something culturally wrong with your program if you're allowing that kind of shit to happen. I think it's so just pathetically gross. And you've heard me say this before, man. I don't like sportsmanship. I'm not in favor. Like, I don't care about being nice to y'all after we win. I mean, but it's just, that is so ridiculous the way they would go about it. And like, it's an interesting, I guess.
And again, their head coach leads that, and he threw a bat at Auburn.
Right. And he got into a fight with Arkansas the year before about recruits.
Dave Van Horn.
It's just
right.
And I'm all about having a villain. I'm all about like leaning into that kind of stuff. Sure, do all that. Like, that's whatever. Like, whatever floats your boat, man. Like, it's worked. But it is such a weird thing. I remember when I had a prediction about Georgia and Tennessee. And again, I am wrong sometimes. But the prediction I had for Georgia, Tennessee, it's pinned to the top of my Twitter. It was painfully accurate. And Tennessee fans leading up to that, Bro, they went into the depths of like what they said about like me personally, about my mom on Twitter, like that kind of stuff. And I was like, get the fuck out of here. Excuse my language, but like it's just
man. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. So
I mean, to bring that crap up. So what's Hammond's talking about with your prediction on Kentucky in football?
Okay, so I said this on Michael Bratton's pods, an old coworker of mine. He has his SEC Mike on Twitter. This is early on in the season, and I'm trying to preface this over and over by saying that I'm not trying to like pat myself on the back that much, but it was just a weird year where I got a lot of stuff right. And going into that Ole Miss game, I was like, to be honest, like Kentucky's kind of shitty, and no one's talking about it. And that was the exact phrase I used. I was like, Kentucky's kind of shitty, and like they don't have like they had so much of this generational talent type stuff from the year before, like at offensive line, especially. You had 3 draft picks in the offensive line. You've never had that. You lose that. Right. When you lose Wan'Dale Robinson, probably the best receiver you've had since Craig Yeast. I was like, I don't think Will Levis is a good enough quarterback that protects the football where you're going to go on the road and win that game at some point. Like you look at all these turnovers he's had, and I'm just going on and on. I was like, yeah, so I got Ole Miss winning. When I tell you, I don't know why I'm looking over my shoulder.
The BBN.
But when I woke up, they came after me mercilessly the rest of the week. They had coaches retweeting it saying like, oh yeah, we saw this. And I'm like, well, you shouldn't be on Twitter. Go to practice, bro. Like 3,000 followers is somehow like motivating the team. Like that's a you problem, not a me problem. And I go to bed Friday night way too late. I wake up at like, I don't want to tell y'all, but it was after halftime of the Ole Miss Kentucky game. And I'm like panicking, like, what's going on? And the first thing I'm trying to do is scramble, trying to find the remote or whatever. And I'm like on Twitter and I got all these texts. And my mom texted me and she was like, I guess you were right. And I was like, about what? She's like, Ole Miss is beating Kentucky. I was like, oh my God, this is the perfect start to the day. And so this is one thing I do love about my job.
I will say this about Kentucky, okay? To me, the offensive line was the whole reason Kentucky's season was the way they were. They lost 3 first draft picks to the NFL. And I mean, that's the first time in, I don't know, forever, maybe ever. Yeah. And the offensive line play this past season was horrible. I mean, just horrible.
Well, for me, it was like I genuinely, I'm not like Brandon Walker where I'm just like trying to shit on everything and tell everyone they're bad, and blah, blah, blah. It was just like, I try to be as objective as possible and like this is what I see. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I said Bama was going to go 10-2 this year. And like that's my favorite team. I said they were going to lose to LSU. That's like, all these things. So with Kentucky though, this is the thing I do love about my job because I thought politics were bad in 2020. That's when I had to stop running social media because it was just like, I can't do this anymore. But college football might be worse because people get so passionate about it. And when you make fun of a school or say something about a school, you're making fun of them personally. And people take it very, very personally. The Kentucky thing, I had no idea that they had that kind of fan base where they were.
Oh, Kentucky's got a fan base. Most people don't realize Kentucky football is serious shit. It really is.
So
like it is, and most people don't realize.
They came out the whole week and just were furious. And there was this one guy in particular on my buddy's podcast. He's a listener to the podcast. And he's like, hey, do you want to join this Twitter space on Friday night? This guy wants to yell at you. And I was like, sure, absolutely. This guy just rips into me about, you don't know what you're talking about. And you said this. And he's like, you were engaged and that didn't work out. I'm like, okay. It's just like all this, like just saying all this shit. And he's going on. And none of the stuff he's saying, you can tell is like about the game. He's just mad. So they lose. And this guy sends me a message. And I what I will say about this too is what I love about this job and more than anything and social media is that like I have met so many good people like from this and I've become like good friends with so many people because we're all kind of the same in a lot of ways. Like we have different colors and stuff like that and that we put on Saturdays but like I just like I get how much it means to everybody. I really do. And so this guy, like, there's been some people that have reached out before that have either hated me a lot of times since they've hated me and they've realized afterwards they don't. This guy sends me a message and he says, I just want to let you know how sorry I am for what I said about you and the things I said on social media. And I feel, none of that was about you. That was stuff that I'm trying to work out as a person. And I projected that. And he was like, wow, that's so healthy. Good for him. He's like, I want to say sorry by sending you a bottle of Kentucky bourbon. Can I please have your address? And so that answer was absolutely not, for sure. But I was like, I knew my buddy was selling his place. He's out of town. I give him that address. So my buddy gets this package from this guy a couple weeks later. And I was like, oh yeah, it's this crazy guy on Twitter wanted to send me like a bottle, blah, blah, blah. My buddy is trying to sell his apartment, like or condo at the time, right? So he's got this place cleaned, spotless, top to bottom. And he's like, Marler, I can't open this stupid thing. It's not opening. And I'm like, well, get a knife. Like, everything's packed. Everything's already packed and moved out. I have nothing in here. I'm trying to like show this house thing out. I'm like, all right. Finally opens it. And as he opens it, he's like, you mother. Like, and I was like, what happened? He goes, there's sawdust everywhere. There's sawdust in this entire thing. It's filled with sawdust. And I was like, like confetti? Like, he's like, no, sawdust. He opens it up and he goes, this guy sent you an empty bottle of Buffalo Trace and a half-drink bottle of Diet Coke. And it just says, go Cats. Fuck you. I was like, wow.
Oh my God, really?
It was so funny. And like, I haven't responded to that guy since. I haven't blocked him, but I was just like, that is the amount of effort that goes into that.
That's classic right there, man. That's classic.
Oh man.
My buddy was so pissed. He's like, bro, I just cleaned this entire place. And now there's sawdust everywhere. It was hilarious. So
pretty classic right there. I'm glad I asked you about it. Hammond's come on and said something about it.
Anyway, yeah, man, it's always fun.
Oh. All right. Hey, so I guess today the media rights, Big 12, they've come to an agreement with Texas and Oklahoma, and the SEC has also put out a statement about the addition of Texas and Oklahoma. Go ahead and talk about the addition of Texas and Oklahoma and how soon it's going to be, as opposed to waiting for the full contract.
Yes, it's going to be 2024 when that happens. So personally, I'm not a huge fan of the addition. I think that's one of those things where when it was announced, first off, it was announced that just like very, very nonchalantly at media days, which is already like a 80-hour work week. And then like you just casually mentioned this on Wednesday. And I remember that week very specifically for a lot of bad reasons. This being one of them, I think. But like when that happened, I think people were initially like, you thought you were going to have this like land grab where everyone's trying to get as much as possible. And the SEC seemed like they were ahead of the curve and they're going to have power conferences. And then you started hearing about these 24 to 25 team mega conferences. And it's going to be like the NFL and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if any of that happens. I don't think it will. Usually people tend to overreact to stuff like this. They're going to join in 2024. I think it's July 1st is the date. So basically the start of the next calendar sports year, which will include all fall sports. You won't get baseball until next year. Won't get football for 2 more years, which is the big one, obviously, right? So I think what it does is one thing, it makes it like the playing field a little bit more even for other conferences in terms of playing a 9-game conference schedule. The SEC will most likely shift to that, which is something the Big Ten and Pac-12 have bitched about, especially the Big Ten, for years and years and years, is forcing them to play a 9-game conference schedule because, as you know, like, you know, when Bama plays Texas in week 2, or, you know, Tennessee goes on the road against Pitt, who's a New Year's 16 the year before, or Auburn plays Penn State, that doesn't count as much as them playing somebody in week 13 that is perceivably weak to the Big Ten. I will also just side note say, if you think that playing, I don't know, Gardner-Webb is that much worse than having a 11 a.m. kickoff against Northwestern, I'd probably argue that. I'd probably argue that point. But no, I think that going into the 9-game conference schedule is whatever. I don't know what this does for the conference because I just think it's like so many cooks in the kitchen kind of thing. Like you've got, like, I don't know how you break it up. Like if it's going to be divisions, it's going to be pods, if it's going to be top to bottom, all that stuff is very difficult to figure out. And you're going to,
I actually hope they won't do away with the divisions, but they probably will.
Yeah. Because I don't know how you do it, but either way, it's so many teams. And then you're going to have like you're going to have so much pushback from like the teams that have been in the conference for a long time, or like I think the first one they drew up was like, all right, Bama, Tennessee, Vandy, and like Mississippi State were in one. And it was like, I mean, I would love to be in a division pod, whatever, with Vandy. That'd be great. But like, how do you break up Auburn, Georgia playing every year, which is the Deep South's oldest rivalry? Do you break up Bama, Auburn? Like, I mean, what does LSU do? You you're out on an island now, and LSU, Texas, and Texas A&M and Oklahoma, the furthest out west. Like, that's a nightmarish pod if you're playing with that. So it's,
or you just do the old big the Southwest Conference, and you have Arkansas,
oh yeah,
Missouri, Oklahoma and
right.
Texas or Texas A&M or whatever. You can pick your poison on those, and
right.
All that. I mean, there's lots of rivalries. I mean, you got Kentucky and Tennessee, that's a rivalry. You got, Mississippi State, that's a rivalry. You got Auburn, Alabama. You've got, you know what I mean? Like there's tons of them. Georgia and Florida play a rivalry every year. It's a big one. So, what do you do with all that? I mean, it's just,
how do you keep it competitively even?
Look, the biggest
for everyone.
Look, the biggest rivalry right now in all of the SEC is Texas A&M and South Carolina. We all know it.
They play for a trophy.
What are you going to do about that?
They play for a trophy. They play for a trophy, and it pisses me off so much. I hate trophy games. I think it's so stupid. It's like, because like all of them, I did a whole thing on this, and I need to redo it too, to be honest. But like, it's just any trophy game. Like Bama Auburn played for a trophy, the FDOK sportsmanship trophy. There's no sportsmanship. You don't get to have sportsmanship in your trophy's name when you burned down those trees a couple years ago. Like the fact that South Carolina A&M play for the trophy. Anyway, but yeah, I don't know how you keep it even or like fair, because I tell you what, like I don't think Bama's necessarily going away. LSU is always strong, but Georgia is a monster right now.
They are absolutely.
And I honestly, I think they're distancing themselves from Alabama. And I think that Kirby's very young and he's able to keep that staff together a lot of times. So I don't want to be in that. Like if you're Auburn, people have talked about like moving them to the east at times. And that way, and then keeping Bama as their cross-divisional rivalry.
Technically, they're east of Nashville. So
I don't know how. Greg Sankey's a lot smarter than I am, for sure. I just don't know how you keep all of that fair. And I'm eager to see, because I think in like the first couple of years, you're going to have a lot of fans like, oh, we went out to Austin. It was so much fun. And, blah, blah, blah. But Texas and Oklahoma are very good historical programs. And anybody that thinks that Texas is not going to come in here and make waves, I understand fully what they've looked like the last decade. I get it. But with Steve Sarkisian and the offensive players he's bringing in, all that kind of stuff, they have Arch Manning. It's going to be real cute for about, I don't know, a couple of weeks. And then they're going to stroll into Athens or Gainesville or Tuscaloosa and beat someone by double digits. And beat somebody.
There's going to be only one year where there's a Manning that doesn't play in the SEC. He's only playing 1 year without being named an SEC quarterback.
And Oklahoma's going to be the same way. You're going to go to Oklahoma and somebody's going to beat they're going to come in and beat somebody's ass. And then it's no longer going to be any fun,
Right. That's a serious question that I did have about it was, you saw in the Big 12, Mizzou competed in the Big 12 in football very well for like, a decade plus, and especially back in like the 60s and stuff like that. But like, let's not forget 2007, they were ranked number 1 in the country, and they've done some things in that conference.
Who wasn't ranked number 1 in the country that year?
That's a very good point. But in that conference specifically in the Big 12, now, and I'm not saying this to pick on Kentucky at all, because I love Mark Stoops and I love what he's been able to do. But you look at programs like South Carolina, Kentucky, Mississippi State, these teams that have had some like
mid-level success.
Right. Yeah. They've had a ceiling over their head for a long time about how successful they could really be consistently because of how dominant the programs are ahead of them or above them. Right. Now, like, what does that do for these programs when you put these two teams that have been, I mean, not just like good, national championship level good, and like the booster money at Texas, it's going to be, I just don't like it. I don't like it. And I think it'll be interesting. I think it's fun to go out there and play there every once in a while. I'm eager to see how the whole conference is going to have a ball laughing at Texas and Texas A&M argue over relevancy, like with their fans, because those two fan bases are ridiculous.
We're going to get to see Jimbo Fisher go after another fan base for doing something stupid. Oh, this is going to be great.
Yeah,
I love to see your takes on that.
I'll have them.
I just want to sit there and go, yes.
Hopefully, I don't know. Like, we got that bourbon from the Kentucky fan. I don't need a Texas fan sending me like a murdered cow or some like brisket in the raw, or just like a bunch of oil that spills everywhere. I don't know what.
No, it's just going to be bull balls. That's all.
Yeah. I agree with you, though. Teams like Kentucky, South Carolina, Mississippi State, even Ole Miss. I mean, you take Ole Miss in that category as well, I would think.
Yeah.
Who have found some level success over the last 5 years. You put Texas and Oklahoma in the mix, and I'm not exactly sure. What is that going to do if you're taking 4 or 5 of those teams, and they're all of a sudden going to be 5 and 7 all the time,
right?
But you're adding Texas and Oklahoma, who is now you've got a bunch of 10 and 2 teams, 5 or 6 of them.
Yeah,
is that helping the conference? Is that helping the conference?
No,
you know what I mean. If you've got a top tier and then the bottom tier is just terrible, is that helping the conference?
So you already were the best conference in football and in really like in baseball, and then you would have these teams they've won or played for several national championships in basketball even, and then you're like, you know what, we're going to add Mizzou and A&M, and you bring in A&M, and Mizzou lost their entire offensive line in the preseason of that 2012 year and had a very tough first year. But then they go and win the division in year 2 and 3, have a top 5 team, almost play for a national title. And then you look at A&M, they have Johnny Manziel, and it's like this whole that was fine. Like, we were able to figure it out, and you're able to still have this balance. But now it's like I hated the idea of 2 power conferences, like playing like the NFL, these 24-team conferences or whatever. But like for SEC fans, and I'm seriously asking this, because they're already biased, and I am as well to an extent. But like, how do you take other conferences seriously if it's like, oh, well, we were 10 and 2 in the SEC or 9 and 3, we're not going to sniff the playoffs. But whoever went 11 and 1 and 12 and 0 in the ACC, let alone the Big 12, the Big 12 is like the worst version. If you had a local theater trying to put together Ocean's 13, that is what the Big 12 is. It's like, none of these people fit. This is so much worse than what it used to be. I don't know why we're watching this, because it's like, I mean, it's all over the country. And then the Pac-12, and those are Power 5 conferences that are still going to have a seat at the table. And you're talking about I got to watch, I don't know,
Rutgers,
and somehow they're going to seriously consider those teams. I don't want to ever hear anything else from the Big Ten for one. From the Pac-12, I don't want to hear anything from what's his name on Fox, with the guy with the great hair, Joel Klatt, about SEC bias, and we just finished a season where we played at Oklahoma, Texas at home, Georgia in the SEC championship game, at LSU. Get out of here, I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but I just cannot wait to watch Rutgers play. I don't know, USC.
Look, Big Ten conference game, USC. At 9 a.m. local time, playing at Rutgers.
And those people don't know shit about football out there. It's like even when USC is good, my ex, her whole family went to like 5 of the 8 original Pac-12 schools or whatever, right? And and she loves football too. Oregon State is really, really becoming much better. They're a good program. They're a top 25 team. Oregon is going to always be like Oregon is. But I mean, I tell you what really, and I'm not even going to get into this whole part of it or try to be super negative about it. But this is one of the things I saw that happened with the Big 12. And I remember when they first expanded, I kept thinking, I was like, man, that's from a financial standpoint, I know you're going to make a crazy amount of money from the TV contracts for football. But the sports that aren't money generating or revenue generating sports are going to start falling by the wayside, which sucks, because it's like, how do you condone, if you're an athletic director making a budget, how do you really condone, oh, we have a Rutgers volleyball game on a Tuesday night, they got to fly out to LA and then back for school? It's like, how do you even look that kind of stuff is, I mean, the example I used to always give was how do you sit there and honestly budget for a Wednesday night women's volleyball game from West Virginia to TCU? And now that you're expanding it even further across the country.
All the way across the country. I mean,
Right.
from one side to the other, as far as you could possibly go. You know, and I mean,
look,
it's ridiculous.
They should just add Hawaii. Come on.
Yeah.
I mean,
North Korea, to be honest. I wouldn't hate it less.
I think if you're gonna go big, might as well go half the ocean.
Yeah. It's just it bums me out.
Right.
It really does. It bums me out. So
I mean, you could be playing in Juneau, Alaska.
yeah.
Well, Chris, man, we've kept you on for about an hour, and I know you've got a few other things that you said you needed to do tonight. So,
yeah, I appreciate it. This is a blast. Anytime.
But we've had some fun and talked about some stuff and laughs. So it was good, and we appreciate you being on with us, man.
Of course, anytime.
Yeah, man. Yeah, come back sometime, and we'll try to maybe before SEC Media Days for football or something, maybe.
Yeah. Just let me know, man, anytime, and I'll go get to all that work I was supposed to do 3 days ago, and I'll get at you guys soon.
All right, man. I just ask that you try to retweet if you can.
Yeah.
Or something, because I'll try to do this. If you can kind of retweet for us and kind of get it out there, I'd appreciate it.
Send me specific links and all that kind of stuff, just because I don't want to overlook anything. Just be as basic about the information that I need to do as possible. Explain it to me like I'm 5 and I got you.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.
All right, man. Thanks.
See you, man. Told you he was gonna be fun.
Oh, he was a blast. Yeah. Jay, you missed it, man.
Yeah, you missed the whole thing. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You'll have to now catch this in the rerun.
Yeah, you missed it, Jay. I'm sorry, man. He was here about an hour.
If this were Butch Thompson interview, you would be right on time, right in the middle of it.
Right. Yeah. This is true. Shut up, John. Right. You live and you learn. So I'd done something with the Butch Thompson interview that I've not done before, because they wanted to go ahead and get the link a couple of hours before the show. And I wasn't actually on the laptop, and we wasn't on, and I think it created a second room. So you live and you learn a little bit on that kind of stuff.
Right.
I didn't know it would do that. If I did, I wouldn't have done it. So
yep.
Jay, it's good, man. We appreciate you being on. And I don't think I froze up tonight. Actually, it's not really freezing. My mic just shuts off when I play that video at the beginning, and you can't hear me.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
We'll make sure that Hugh Freeze goes and visits him. That didn't really hit.
You got the Hugh Freeze things.
I know.
You just better hope Hugh Freeze don't go away from his football stuff and he stays busy.
Just need your address so I could send you a bottle of bourbon.
Yeah, that's classic. Jay, if you're still on with us, you got to catch about 45 minutes in. You got to catch the classic Kentucky story that he told. Okay, you got to catch it.
Yes.
All right. All right. So we are now sponsored by Prize Picks, and if you use promo code CSCast, they will 100% match your deposit up to $100. So it's a daily fantasy sports, and you can get on there and do Major League Baseball, NBA, NFL, college football, NHL, golf is on there, racing. There's all kinds of stuff. There's 30 plus sports to do. You go higher, lower, pick a play or a player or a team, and go higher, lower. It's kind of fantasy style sports betting. Minimum bet, I believe, is $5. And we just ask that you go there and help support us. And when you do open a new account, they will double your money by using the code CSCast. SportsCast for your daily fantasy sports fun. And we would appreciate that. And just so you know, before I finish on that, I do usually try to send a tip on my a daily tip on my Twitter account, Brad Cast on Twitter. So you can catch that as well. Our 2023 nonprofit organization for the fanboys and Winning Edge Sports Network is Home for Our Troops. They're building homes and rebuilding lives, and this is for wounded and injured veterans. And they will build them a home anywhere in the country. So they can be from Illinois and move to California, and they will build them a house in California. For every dollar that you give, 90 cents of that dollar goes towards building homes. And they have been doing this for 20 plus years. You can give to them at hfotusa.org. All right. Do we have announcements, John? Tonight?
Well, I mean, our next show is Sunday. We don't really have any guests for Sunday or Tuesday, but you do have one next Thursday.
We do. Next Thursday, I think, is our next guest show, I believe. And that's going to be UT legend Ron Slay is going to be on with us. And I'm going to have a little fun with this one because Ron is actually not coming on as a celebrity guest type stuff. Ron is going to come on and actually do our game day pick'ems on Thursday nights with us on our game day pick'ems for College Sportscast. And the real fun is that he's coming on February 16th, and our game day pick'ems will cover February 18th's games, which is Tennessee at Kentucky. And I figured me and him will have a little fun with the Tennessee Kentucky game as a pick.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be a fun show to do. And I look forward to Ron Slay being on with us. I don't think that John's going to be here that night.
Nope.
He's going to miss John, that is an announcement I need to make. John's going to miss a couple of shows next week. He's going to miss Tuesday, Thursday. He's doing some stuff, I think, for his wife, Valentine's Day and stuff like that, I believe. So we're giving him a pass.
Yes.
We're giving John a pass next week for a couple of days, a couple of shows. But so on the Ron Slay show next week, we'll have Jason Harrison, me, and Ron Slay, and we'll be doing the game day pick'ems. It should be a fun show to do.
And then follow up to on the 19th, I believe we got Stephen Heigl, right? And that on the 19th?
We do. Yep. On Sunday the 19th, we got Steve Heigl that's going to come on our show. He was on in January once, and he does just football.net and just collegebasketball.net. And he's a John Wooden Award voter, and he does a lot of stuff with college basketball and a couple of podcasts and stuff as well. So he knows his stuff. He'll be on with us. We'll be doing a little college basketball talk and bracketology stuff, talking about teams on that is not this Sunday, but the next Sunday, the 19th.
Right.
And I think.
Well, we're hoping to get a few others after that, but we haven't set anything in stone yet. And I know that we do have, mock draft guy will come back on.
His is set, actually. Yeah, his is February the 26th.
Right. Yeah.
The mock draft guy is.
Yeah, I knew that one was going to be set, but the other ones that that we're working on, we haven't gotten set in stone yet, but we will announce them as they are, as we have some form of agreement or whatever on what time or what day or whatever. So we have a few guests that are going to come on. We just haven't set a date for them yet. So
right, we don't have a set date for some of them yet.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So I do know we're going to have mock draft guy on February 26th. That's a Sunday afternoon at 3:00. And we'll be doing a 2-round mock draft with him. And then 2 days later on the 28th, we're going to have a bracketology guy. His name is Jason. He's JB Bracketology on Twitter. If you want to follow him on Twitter, JR Bracketology is his Twitter handle. And he's going to be on with us.
Right.
So Jay says he wants to join the mock draft show. It's February. The next one is February 26th on a Sunday afternoon at 3:00 Central Time. So it'll be 4 Eastern.
There we go.
Which I think he's in South Carolina. So it'll be 4 Eastern, Jay.
There we go.
But anyways, that's our next mock draft show. And that's a few of the things that we have coming up. And what John was talking about, we are working with a couple of other people, trying to get a couple of other people on our show as well. So we just don't have exact times and dates set for some of that stuff yet. But we're working on it. And we've had some fun this week. I mean, in the last week, we've had Peter Burns on. We've had Auburn baseball coach Butch Thompson on. We've had Chris Marler on from Saturday Down South.
Three consecutive shows with some big time guests.
Right. So I mean, we've really had some fun lately, and we hope you guys are enjoying these shows. They've been a blast to do, and we appreciate that. That all of them are coming on College SportsCast to be a part of this with us. So it's fun to do, and it's just really kind of amazing that we get these people that we've been getting, and it's just fun to do. We hope to keep doing that for you.
Yes, we do.
And again, go to Prize Picks for us. Help us out. It'll double your money. If you only have $50 to put down, instead of getting 50 when you make a deposit, you're going to have $100 to play with. So, I mean, whatever that is, if you have $25 to put down, it'll be 50. So up to $100, it'll basically double it. It's a 100% deposit match. Again, use the code CSCAST to do that. And from there, we will see you on Sunday, and we'll do our week wrap-up show. And it will be me, John, and Jason that's on Sunday. And then next week, John's going to take a couple of days off. So, or a couple of shows off, not days off, shows off.
Right.
And we will see you on Sunday with our week wrap-up show and live chat show.
Yep.
All right. Y'all have a good night.
See you.